Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the new evolutions and upgrades that have just gone live in North America. So, my wrists still hurt and it makes it incredibly painful to type, so I'm going to be doing this orally in order to at least produce some sort of content. So, I'm going to be utilizing the Puzzle and Dragons official posting from Gung Ho. I can leave that link in the description down below so you can take a look and read through at your leisure. But as a general blanket statement, I always enjoy when old cards receive meaningful buffs or evolutions because it helps bring them back into relevancy. And due to the fact that the Rare Machine has so many old cards and you're very likely to roll them, especially when chasing those Mystics and Spectres, it is meaningful when they do receive buffs. So there are quite a few different evolutions, and the first one is Manoa, going from base Manoa to a special primary attribute less Manoa. I feel like I need to think of a better name for that. But basically, it's a Manoa with only a sub-attribute. So she still deals the same amount of damage. It's still 100% of her attack value as a sub-attribute, which means it's going to be the last ping. So let's say this was your friend's leader. The final ping will be wood. And for this card here, you have a nice amount of skill boost. You have sizable VDP damage with a monster, quite a large attack stat. But the main drawback is mono wood is not exactly in the greatest place at this point in time. I feel like you could pair things like Chakiel, you could pair with other mono wood type leaders, but I feel like it's not going to necessarily break the game, so to speak, because we do have such strong leaders at this point in time that really can outpace this. But on the bright side, Manoas are still great for their active skill and their base form because it's a guaranteed 15-15 board of wood and hearts, which technically has the least amount of animation if you're concerned for ranking dungeons. So there's that. The next card is Neptune. And Neptune is a card I have never been truly amazed by. I don't think Neptune has really ever been truly great. I wouldn't even say good. I think he's always been like bad to lackluster to maybe average if he's lucky. And in his new super reincarnated form, we're kind of hoping he's going to gain some love. But the thing is, it's a super reincarnated card that has 4 skill boosts, like 4 actual skill boosts. It's not like the skill boost plus. So it's kind of like, that's a little awkward. You're kind of using awakenings from like the very early days of patent for a brand new 2021 card. And yes, he can get 6 skill boosts with super awakenings, but you're kind of dealing with a card who has a really awkward active skill. You have 5 times attack for attacker and devil types for 2 turns, so a monstrous burst damage, and then poison. But the problem is, we have other ways to gain burst, and 5 times may be a little excessive due to the fact that how most things can hit damage cap on a reasonably regular basis, especially these bursts. And the thing is, most spawns nowadays have ways to ensure they can't be killed in 1 turn. They either have too much effective health through large amounts of damage reduction and just a large health pool, or they have super resolve. So, like, it becomes a little redundant, and for a 15-turn cooldown, you're not actually providing counters to any other mechanics. For example, like Leona from King of Fighters, she has a 3 times attack burst, but she also has color absorb negation, and it's on a shorter cooldown if I'm not mistaken. So the problem with Neptune is you can't really utilize him in any way, shape, or form, I feel. Like, you can't inherit something over top of him. It's going to be 15 turns plus whatever you inherited, and then you're only going to use that inherit once per dungeon, and then maybe this base skill again towards the end. I feel like it's just something you're kind of going to be awkward to work around. And one thing that I found unusual was, like, if I scroll all the way down to, where is it, Orpharion, Despharion, they got super skill boosts, and they're farmable cards, so I don't know why Neptune didn't. Like, if those were super skill boosts and he had some other relevant, useful awakenings, he could have been much more meaningful. But in this point in time, I don't think he's going to make a splash, so to speak. Yes, you have poison resist. Yes, you have 6 effective skill boosts, but you could use Lamp, and Lamp is a little less effective skill boost, but that's super poison resist, gives team damage, and a much stronger base skill. So I feel like Neptune comes at a time where he doesn't fulfill any niche right now. And I guess maybe you could use him as a leader if you have enough god types, but Neptune himself will have no personal damage unless you have a VDP. He doesn't make orbs, and you need to have 6+ water orbs. It's just a lot of hurdles to overcome. For Uriel, I think he actually has fantastic animation. Like, if you go into game and just take a look at it, he just looks great. I think that's one of the cooler animations in my opinion. But for their actual kit itself, they can get a 7 combo or a super jammer resist for their super awakening. So if we take 7 combo, you have 10, 7, 7. So that's 20 times personal damage with a respectable attack stat, considering this is not level 110 nor plus 297. So this is actually going to be hitting for a meaningful amount of damage. And their active skill changes light to fire and dark to heal. So it doesn't break activation for any of the top mono fire leaders. Like Sienna can definitely utilize Uriel. Gillian can as well. The main drawback is it's only 2 skill boosts. And I'm still, again, like, why are you giving like a super reincarnated card a regular skill boost? Like, come on, it's 2021. These cards should have skill boost plus at least. And these soft or recover binds, like, I guess maybe they're trying to find ways to make those new latents work, but I don't feel like they're meaningful enough at this point in time. So yes, you can use the hearts to clear 9 turns of binds with a row, but you have to be mindful of the fact that when you get bound, like if your leaders are bound, you can clear the binds, but if their leader skill gave a health multiplier, you don't get pushed back to full health. Let's say you had like a 4 times health leader, and then you go down to 50,000 health because you got bound for both leaders. When you unbind to make math easy, you go up to 200,000. But it's not the case. You're 50,000 health out of a 200,000 health pool. So you still have to heal up. I guess you can argue that Uriel's active skill does heal 50% of your health instantly, or heal 50% health over the course of 2 turns every turn. So this auto healing aspect can be quite significant if you have a large health pool. It's not a Kuro Yuri loop, but it's a little bit of something. So I feel like Uriel, like, he does hit hard, but he's not addressing any mechanics. And for like Sienna teams, you already have your leaders who hit way harder than anyone else, basically. So Uriel's not really accomplishing that much. So I think it's a nice card, beautiful art, but I don't think it's going to have a truly great place to be utilized in, because you need to be above 80% health, which is just an awkward health threshold to stay above for a leader. For the various pixel cards that are coming out, the Pixel Citri has 4 attacker killers, and like, I always like to have killer stick solutions, and at this point in time, if I'm not mistaken, there are no cards with 4 attacker killers. And the ones that have like 3 attacker killers will have significantly, or they're from like collabs or whatnot. Like, it's just not, it's unusual to have like rare machine cards with massive amounts of killers. Like, it seems to be kind of a trend for lower rarity collab or seasonal events. So having someone that can deal massive amounts of damage against a particular spawn is helpful. And who knows, maybe in the future, this could be the new Pixel Dantalion, because, not Pixel Dantalion, Pixel Napoleon, because Pixel Napoleon has relevance because machine killers are truly helpful in Shura Realm with the lack of voids appearing, so it can be meaningful. So these cards might come into some value at this point in time. So just, it's nice to have, be ready for them. Same idea of all the other cards here. You get, Takum, I can't pronounce your name, has 3/7 combos and super blind resist, but they're not fulfilling any niche. Yes, you think, well, I can make 3 fire and 3 water orbs, but you don't need that on Sienna, I can't pronounce that name. You don't need it on that team because your leaders will provide the orbs anyway. So this is kind of a somewhat redundant active skill. Maybe you could argue that, sure, you can inherit something over top of them. So it's 3 skill boosts plus an inherit. Maybe you can get many effective skill boosts, but it's only giving you orb movement time. And I don't think that's truly the greatest thing to really have in addition to like orb changing. So I feel like it's a card that exists, but it's not going to be used in a meaningful manner. For Nemaine, she can function as a unique healing solution with 0 base attack, essentially, but a large amount of RCV. So if you are playing with a team with large health, no recovery multiplier, this can be a possible solution. And the fact that you do have color absorb cancellation for 2 turns is actually a useful thing to have on teams for endgame content. And breaking defense does have merits in certain cases. Like, you could use it for, like, say, training to arena farming. Like, those spawns have hundreds of millions of defense. Taking that all away makes it much easier to overcome. Of course, she doesn't do much else aside from that, but it might be something to consider. And because it's 2 turns, you could flub a turn and still have the defense break. For Cthulhu, there's the 4 killers. I got mixed up in the order they were displayed. But with 4 healer killers, it's the only card in the game with this. The other cards with 3 healer killers are all collabs or seasonals or just not available regularly, so it can be a meaningful thing, and Cthulhu is not really used in any other way, shape, and form at this point in time. Balboa, similar logic, lots of balance killers. Again, like, these could be like the new Pixel Napoleons if we get a dungeon that has those typings in excess. And again, that 2 turns of defense break can be meaningful if you're playing through content with super high defense. Now we come to the Ney earrings, and all of the Ney earrings follow this same template. They all need a Quillen Dragon, so I feel like there's an opportunity cost of, if you have limited Quillen Dragons, you can make Ney's weapon, or you can make the Chinese Celestials like Leyland's earrings. So I feel like it's meaningful to compare the 2 side by side. So all the nays follow the same pattern. They will have a skill boost, 2 recover binds, and then 3 rows for their respective colors. So for transforming teams that are monocolor, these are meaningful awakenings because they are providing what you need. And the active skill gives you a full bind and a woken bind recover, plus a tri-elemental board changer with their 2 colors, like their primary color and dark usually, and heart orbs. So a tri-color board changer of hearts is great for executing stuff. Like you usually can activate, you can heal, you can most likely have enough orbs to make your VDP or row or whatever combination you need to have. So it's a useful active to have when it charges up. And the skill boost and the rows, it kind of almost reminds me of like Wrath weapon assist. I think Wrath is still a bit superior because it combines the attack burst and it doesn't break activation for like certain teams that need specific colors. But again, this is definitely a bit more accessible, I think, compared to rolling in the Sin Dragons event from previous times. So, like I said, this needs a Quillen Dragon Gem, and it has a skill boost and passive damage via rows. If we look at the... Whoops, it's going to cover up the screen because it needs to be big enough. We look at Leyland's Earring, and again, all the Chinese Celestials have a similar format. You have the same skill boost, but you have the bind immunity. So the bind immunity is highly relevant in Shura 2 or Ruler of Hell's Hall because your transforming leaders often are vulnerable to binds, and floor 1 has a 10-turn preemptive bind. Being able to block that is tremendously helpful, and you get a little bit of passive damage through the orb enhances. The rows are definitely a much more reliable source of damage by comparison, but the bind immunity will save your leaders. And because of that, I feel like I'd be leaning a bit more heavily towards Leyland Earrings if you only had one Quillen Dragon, especially if you're playing through Ruler of Hell's Hall and your leaders are vulnerable to binds. But on that note, if you have ways to give bind immunity to your leaders, or you don't, it's not a relevant issue for you, these Nay Earrings can provide that extra value of a full bind and awoken bind clear, because in Ruler of Hell's Hall, you still have spawns that will actually provide massive amounts of bind. And if you're running something like Christmas Gremlin, I'm just kind of using teams that I've used because I know they work well. Christmas Gremlin only has a 5-turn bind and awoken bind clear naturally, so inheriting something on top of her is meaningful. Give her an extra skill boost, give her some passive damage, give her an active skill that can fully clear those binds, so when you get to that ogre floor, you can clear those binds very happily. So I feel like it does have definitely a place in current endgame content, and the fact that you're able to get rows as a nice amount of passive damage with a skill boost is meaningful. The recover bind, I feel like, is not going to be that abused because you are most likely going to inherit this possibly on someone who already could clear binds just to give them an upgraded active skill. And that logic will apply to every single Nay. They just changed colors, and the dark Nay will produce jammers instead of, it produces dark hearts and jammers, so a little bit of a downgrade overall in my opinion. For cards that received direct upgrades, Dark Metatron received a significant boost overall. Her leader skill is now significantly higher. She does cap out at 400 times multiplier. That is much higher than it was beforehand. And she still has the 4 times health and 57.75% damage reduction. So she is still incredibly tanky. She also gained another 2 times personal damage. So without a VDP, she's always 8 times damage if you can hit those 7 combos. She gained a bit of extra movement time. It just makes it easier. Plus, you only need to hit 6 combos for activation. She is definitely an outdated leader by today's standards, but she is much stronger than she was beforehand. And if you do have a Dark Metatron, you definitely can clear a large chunk of content, I feel, because these are still respectable multipliers. For Sheet has gained a 7 combo, and they have gained an attack buff, so they could potentially have meaningful TPA damage, but Wood TPA doesn't really have a place to utilize them on, and instead, I feel that maybe they might have some merits for like swipe farming and co-op, because their leader skill needs 4+ linked orbs. 4+ linked orbs can be anything. It could be a full mono board and you swipe. You have bonus damage for fire and water. So if you have a team of like Machine Goemons or like Machine Noahs, and you pair with something equivalent that has auto follow-up attack so you can kill resolve spawns, it might not be a bad thing because with no Skyfalls, it goes faster. I think it might have some applications there. I haven't really used my sheet that much. It does feel a little sheety overall. Next is Fenrir-Viz. And at one point in time, Fenrir-Viz was one of the best subs in the game because we didn't have Jammer Surge or Poison Surge super latents. And they were just such an efficient way to overwrite the Poison Skyfall debuffs in AA3, I think it was. Yeah, pretty sure it's AA3. It was some time ago. And Fenrir-Viz with this upgrade now can overwrite those Poison or Hazard Skyfalls, as well as giving you plus 1 second orb movement time. So hey, you can overwrite another kind of debuff for a 1-turn cooldown. Still meaningful. And they hit incredibly hard against gods. They can have 7 combos. They have god killers. They can deal meaningful amounts of damage. They also get a 7 combo through Super Awakening. So big damage against gods for sure. And their leader skill is actually significantly upgraded because they provide you with a 500 plus times attack multiplier and 68.64 times damage reduction when you match jammer combos. Like, you only need 1 jammer combo. You don't need 2 jammer combos. And you're always going to hit 6 or more combos anyway. So you can get a significant amount of damage reduction. The main drawback is, well, you need to have jammers. And to a certain extent, one of those active skills from Fenrir-Viz will definitely be taken away for just looping those jammers overall. And then there are some spawns that do horrible things if jammers are present, which can be potentially annoying. As a whole, this is definitely one of the better jammer style leader skills out there, but again, I feel like it still can be a little clunky to use. Bastet, I feel, received one of the biggest buffs for this set because she now has a super poison resist instead of 2 poisons. So you saved an awakening slot and you got 3 more as well. That's a big bonus. And her 2 skill boosts are now a skill boost plus. She gained a 1.5 extra seconds of orb movement time. She gained a guard break, which can possibly have some merits on rainbow teams. And her max skill level is 2, not 3. So you're getting closer to Halloween Bastet, I feel like. You're definitely a much more meaningful card. And you definitely can utilize her on like a wide variety of teams because she can carry your utility. She provides you with that super poison resist. She does have reasonable personal damage as well. And it's just a nice card to have. Like, I feel like if I am struggling to find a good last sub and the team can accept Bastet, may not be a bad thing to slot on. Like, Diao Chen is definitely favored for her 2-turn active with Super Blind. Maybe you could argue Bastet will bring her guard break and follow-up attack as well, and a bit more personal damage. So, as a whole, I think Bastet possibly received one of the largest buffs in terms of just the amount of upgrades they received in their kit. Speaking of upgrades, Lucifer is also tremendously upgraded. Their active skills now have 5-turn cooldown for the Column of Hearts, Column of Dark, and the 50% health cut. So any team that likes to be below 50% health is definitely a bit stronger because of this, because you can reset your health on a much more regular basis. And also means you can carry an inherit of your choice. But another drastic upgrade is their awakenings. They now have 4 attack while below 50%, while also having a large attack stat. So this amount of raw personal damage is 16 times, and he can gain a skill boost plus through Super Awakening, so he could have 3 effective skill boosts. But 16 times personal damage with a large attack stat and a short base cooldown. This is, I feel, one of the best subs to bring on Yux teams if you don't have a dupe Yux, because now you have the same personal damage multiplier as Yux. You don't have the VDP, but you have 16 times damage. But it becomes more meaningful when you are trying to kill the first floor, especially in solo mode when you may not be able to transform right away. You can use Lucifer's big damage to actually kill the middle gear, and you might be able to just stall happily after that and transform. I think Lucifer received a massive buff for his sub potential, but he also has received a buff for his leader skill. He gets bonus combos and he has a higher attack multiplier. It's 400 times attack, along with the fact that he does have higher personal damage. So leading with Lucifer, I think I've seen someone utilize it for Training Arena too. It did work for sure. I think they had a bunch of Chuans, so may not necessarily be the most accessible, but it is something to consider. But I feel like I'm just excited for their sub potential because when I play co-op myself, I have Lucifers across my teams because they're just such a powerful card that can solve the first floor if I don't transform, but I do anyways. Next is Astroth. And Astroth now has a significantly upgraded leader skill. All you need to be is reincarnated or super reincarnated. And all you have to do is match wood or dark. Doesn't matter which color, wood or dark. And you actually have 4 times health, 4 times recovery, 400 times attack, and auto follow attack damage. Incredibly easy to activate. And the main drawback is her awakenings are a little awkward in the sense that she doesn't really have too much personal damage unless you're actually hitting that VDP. But at the same time, you could potentially build a team of just only dark cards. Yes, you will waste her wood rose, but maybe that's a price you're willing to pay if you can stick on a bunch of stronger mono dark subs. Maybe something to keep in your mind, because it's incredibly easy to activate. Like, this is easy damage overall. And I kind of am starting to become a bit more liking leaders that only care about, like, say, pixel cards or like reincarnate, super reincarnate, because if they give them big enough leader skill multipliers, easy enough to activate, they could possibly have meaningful usage. But I feel like the main drawback of Astaroth is if you are going to go for like she doesn't do much personal damage, and it kind of does become an issue when both your leaders don't contribute large amounts of damage. Orpharian and the other farmables here receive significant upgrades. Orpharian is now 5 skill boosts, because they do have a skill boost through Super Awakening. So this is a drastic upgrade. They gained 1 more skill boost, condensed their awakenings, more movement time, condensed their binds, got more orb enhances. Pretty exciting things all around. And I guess in theory they could potentially be a leader because they have a large attack multiplier, but they don't have enough effective health. It's not going to be truly viable. And if you really wanted to try and play with these, maybe Dark Orpharian would be more valuable. For another Crusader, I've never utilized them in any way, shape, or form, but they have now Super Blind. They have 7 combo. They have a bunch of co-op boosts. Maybe it could be utilized in co-op. I don't know. I'm not quite sure where they could truly shine or function, but it's something. But Dark Orpharian makes me excited because, similar idea to Light Orpharian, basically the same awakening changes, but their leader skill is 4 times health, 4 times recovery, and 400 times attack for machines when you make 2 dark combos with auto follow attack. Those are nice numbers, but again, another issue is your leaders don't have personal damage. Orpharian doesn't hit hard, but as a 5 skill boost card, I'm pretty happy with them considering they're farmable, and they can create hard orbs as well as dark orbs. Maybe even as a sub potentially on teams if you need 5 skill boosts, maybe, who knows. But I think the buffs are pretty significant for a farmable card. I haven't used them in quite some time, but 5 skill boosts with no sub attribute with relatively short base cooldowns is pretty helpful for various builds. And now we come to all the Manoas who have received buffs. So all their cooldowns for all the Manoas have been reduced in some way, shape, or form, which is obviously important. And I feel that the light Manoa has definitely become a much stronger leader for basically rainbow teams. And I want to look at her because she now gives plus combos and halves damage. So a significant effective health upgrade. You reduce significantly more damage. And all you need to do is match wood and light along with 4 attributes total. So you're probably going to be able to do that most times. You get auto follow attack. Lots of potential rainbow pairings because it's not type restricted. It's just a flexible thing that gives you auto follow attack and bonus combos, which is actually an incredibly rare combination. It's unusual to see both auto follow attack and bonus combos at the same time. So I feel like they definitely have much more merits as rainbow leaders. And again, because they don't have typing restrictions, she doesn't have typing restrictions, you can pair with a wider variety of cards. Again, they have received massive damage. They have received damage reduction upgrades, and they have gained auto follow attack, like larger auto follow attack. And larger auto follow attack becomes significant if you're playing through, like, say, AA4, where they have the latents have tremendously high amounts of effective health, or A10 with the 2 billion defense. You can just overcome them with auto follow attacking. It's something reasonable overall. For Algae has received a significant buff as well. Her active skill gives you a 50% health heal, which I don't know if it's going to change that many things, but her leader skill is where we want to look at. She has significantly higher damage output when you just hit 4 or more colors. It's just a slight change of how her leader skill activates, but you still need to match an L of 5 orbs. That's still not changed, but it's an L of anything. But you have a same amount of attack multiplier, but you have 10 million auto follow-up attack damage, not 1 million. So dual Algae is 20 million. That's kind of absurd, and I don't think it's gone live yet, but in JP, they have changed auto follow attack to ignore damage void and damage absorption. So I guess in theory, if you are playing through older content and Sop that appears, bam, don't even need a Fujin style active skill to kill it if you have this much auto follow attack. It's kind of a cool idea, I think, overall, but at the same time, it's not here yet. But it does run the risk of getting the damage voided out against resolve spawns. Like, some resolve spawns have void damage, so you hit them to resolve, your auto follow attack is voided out, and they execute you. Kind of awkward. And in addition to that, they gained 1.5 times health for wood, so you just became even tankier. Like, it is a significant health upgrade, especially if you are able to build your team with lots of mono wood cards or just wood cards on the team with sub-attributes or even sub-attribute as wood just to gain the health multiplier. Makes you much tankier, and you can still pair with a wide variety of leaders because, again, no typing restriction. Neptune's active skill I already talked about beforehand, and kind of Uriel, Gabriel, Michael, like they do have the instant 50% health heal plus 50% health heal for 2 turns. Not a Kuro Yuri loop, but you're kind of close actually. You're pretty close. You get 3 turns worth of healing, and it's an 8-turn cooldown. So 2 of them can almost loop. But they give you orbs, and they also give you much better awakenings by comparison. I feel like all these changes we've already talked about. Now we come to the ninjas. And the ninjas, their active skills will now convert hazards into their respective colors. So it's for Chiyomi, it's light plus hazards into fire. Same pattern for all the ninjas. And you might think, well, that's whatever. I don't use the ninjas, but you might use the ninjas with their new weapon assists. Their new weapon assists all feature a relatively similar archetype from what they did before, but now they add in skill bind resist and bind immunity. For a budget bind immunity weapon assist, because I think ninjas are budget because they're kind of roles you acquire when you're going to like chasing something else, it's not a bad thing overall. And they provide you with 40% resist against a certain metric, along with a tiny, tiny amount of passive damage. But hey, not a bad deal overall. You can definitely stick this on your transforming cards and guarantee they don't get bound. And even though they do have low base cooldowns, which is always a hindrance for weapon assists, if you're on a transforming card, you're going to transform them, and then you're going to be relying on their new active skill post-transform, so you don't have to really worry about these overcharging. It's not a bad way to layer in skill bind resist, especially if you're lacking that for your transforming team. So for a very, very low rarity card, I think this is actually quite a significant buff. And that brings us to the end of all the stuff. So overall, I feel like the buffs here are quite significant. Like, it's nice whenever old cards do get buffed, and like the ninjas definitely receive quite a bit of love. I feel like Algae's new auto follow attack is going to be interesting, at least for now. We're going to be sad when it gets voided out, if I'm not mistaken. Orpharian's got the new skill boost. Lucifer, I'm quite happy with him because I do use Lucifer regularly. Bastet definitely has tremendous sub flexibility overall. So with that in mind, let me know what you think about all these new evolutions and buffs in the comments below. Which ones do you think are the most significant, and which ones are you the most excited to use or have been using already? And because my wrists are still hurting, I'm not going to really be able to reply to comments, but I do appreciate everyone who did respond to the question time and also the question answered video as well at the same time. But either way, hopefully all the Mantastic day. I wish you all the best looking your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.